Ladies and gentlemen, one thing we can honestly say, there is no end in sight for this opioid plague that is sweeping across the nation. And now um, there's a big jump in overdoses among middle aged women. I want to thank one of my subscribers, Dominique, for sending this story. The rate of deaths from opioid overdoses soared by nearly 500% among women over 30, the CDC found. The plague of overdose deaths is worsening at a startling rate among middle aged women, federal health experts reported Thursday. Drug overdose deaths have soared among women over 30, starting in 1999, with the biggest increase among women 45 to 64. The team of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention found deaths from drug overdoses increased by 260% among women 30 to 64 between 1999 and 2017. And the rate of overdose deaths from opioids increased by an enormous 492% among women age 30 to 64. Wow, that is huge. Rise in drug overdose deaths among U.S. women 1999 to 2017. Total deaths from all drug overdoses among women. So it's showing you the different lines. And as you can see, when you get to 25 to 34, which is the red, and the 45 to 54 is the black, and the green, which is 35 to 44. Red, black, green, right? And the blue, 55 to 64, and 15 to 24 is the gray, and 65 and over, yellow. So, wow. You see the biggest percentage is between 25 and 34 to 45 to 54. So they're right. Wow. While men are far more likely than women to die of drug overdoses, the pattern shows that the dangers of painkillers overuse across the U.S. population. The U.S. is battling an ever worsening plague of deaths from opioid drugs. Last year, the government reported more than 70,000 Americans died from drug overdoses, a 10% increase in just 1 year. Remember, that's only 22 states, not the whole country. By far, the biggest cause was opioid drugs, especially synthetic opioids such as fentanyl, which is all of that comes from China. Statistics show that most of those who die from overdoses first use opioids with a legitimate prescription from a doctor. The CDC has been doctors to think twice about prescribing an opioid and advises patients to question their doctors before accepting a prescription. The CDC's Karen Mack and colleagues analyzed death certificates from all 50 states, looking at suicides, homicides, accidental, and unknown causes of deaths. They took note of which drugs were in a person's system at the time of death, including antidepressants, opioids, anxiety drugs, heroin, and cocaine. Many of those who died had more than one drug in their system at the time, and that is more common than uncommon. In fact, it's not very common for them to have one drug only. They usually have a combination of drugs, and sometimes a combination of drugs and alcohol in their system. Deaths might have involved more than one substance, Mack team wrote. Increases in deaths involving certain drugs might be the result of increases in certain drug combinations. For example, the CDC and other groups have been warning about the special dangers of taking opioids and anxiety drugs, such as Xanax and Valium, at the same time. Both slow breathing and taken together can make people stop breathing. But what stuck out was the increase in deaths among women 30 and older, especially among women age 45 and older. Prescription opioid related deaths increased between 1999 and 2017 among women age 30 to 64, with the largest increases among those 55 to 64. Max Team wrote in their report published in the CDC's weekly report on death and disease. Prescription opioids, clearly. Yeah, I mean, that has been the biggest killer for the last 2 decades in this country. So, I mean, they are right about that. We've seen overall prescribing decline since 2010 to 2012, but I think it's informative to see that among women ages 30 to 64, prescription opioid overdose deaths still represented such a large number, Lynch said. Lynch also suspects suicide might be a bigger factor than the coding on death records can indicate. Most likely, there are hidden suicides there, he said. It can be very difficult to tell. As we know from postmortem evaluation, a determination is made whether it was intentional or not. But of course, relatively, we do know the individual's mindset before these tragic events, he added. Sometimes there are clear indicators like suicide notes, and sometimes, unfortunately, people have died, and we found a fatal amount of combination of drugs in their system, but we don't know how or why they got there. I know how they got there. They're junkies. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap between misuse and unintentional overdose and those who intentionally overdose to kill themselves. All right, look like a doctor tweeted about it um, on January 11th, 2019, out on Twitter. Doctors treating patients for depression, for pain, for anxiety, for other conditions need to beware, the CDC team said. Substantial work has focused on informing women of childbearing age about the risk and benefit of the use of certain drugs, particularly for the risk posed by neonatal abstinence syndrome as a result of opioid use during pregnancy, they wrote. The current analysis demonstrates the remaining need to consider middle aged women who remain vulnerable to death by drug overdose. Well, I mean, how do you stop it after 20 years? You really can't. And um and like I said, there are so many things they got in place today. You know, they have drug court where these people don't even have to go to jail. They have given amnesty to these drug addicts. And the way I see it, those things are enabling the situation. It's not helping at all. But let's go ahead and listen to this video.
When you talk about opioid overdoses and opioid overdose deaths, we all in society have a picture in our mind of who we think that at-risk person is, who we think that person most likely to die or at risk of dying every day is. And frankly, we don't picture women. People picture this younger, perhaps reckless, perhaps jobless, perhaps homeless young man on a park bench. That's what people's minds go to. That's just simply not who's most at risk. It is our moms and our aunts, our grandparents, our colleagues, the people we go to work out with, the people we perhaps attend church with. If we're not picturing the right population, we're not targeting the right population. So part of it comes from us not targeting them correctly.
Okay. All right. Let's go on up here. All right. Let's see.
Dustin McKisson lost his mother, Peggy, too soon. She died in 2014 at just 56 years old.
She was prescribed something that she was told was safe and okay to use.
OxyContin for a knee injury turned in time to crippling addiction. Her last years of life spent desperate for the drug and withdrawn from her family.
She was alone when she died. She was not doing well, obviously, physically or I think mentally.
Women like Peggy, the face of an alarming trend. Overdose deaths among women ages 30 to 64 soaring 260% in the last 2 decades, the biggest spike in middle-aged women.
It is our moms and our aunts, our grandparents, our colleagues, the people we go to work out with.
And while men are still far more likely to die from an overdose, numbers show women more at risk than ever. Experts say a population often reluctant to ask for help.
The last thing that any woman I've ever met wants to say is, I'm imperfect. I'm not okay.
McKisson's advice, keep trying to get them the help they need.
Even though my mom's story ended in a tragic way, there are other stories that don't.
Katie Beck, NBC News.
Okay. Well, ladies and
In an interview with the New York Times, Republican Congressman Steve...
Didn't want that to come on. Well, as you can see, people are still telling their stories of family members and their loved ones dying from drug addiction in America, which is through the roof. I don't know how they're going to ever clear this up, but as you can see, no end in sight. And so we will find out the end of 2019 what the 2018 numbers are. They're always lagging behind 1 year before the numbers are published. Usually somewhere around summer, you'll hear rumblings about what it is, and they'll have more than likely publications out about it by the end of 2019. But please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.